Well, thank you everyone for coming and joining today for Perimenopause Unpacked. We'll be hopefully together for the next 5 days. I'll be here and really just diving into a lot of the basics around perimenopause. So this will stay kind of at the 101 level, but I'll show you an option to get a little bit deeper into more of a 201, which actually starts next week. So with that all being said, I'll introduce myself. My name is Kelly Vita, and I own Empower Her Fitness Batavia, and I am co-owner of Zenloft Collective in downtown Batavia. So all classes and events are held there at Zenloft Collective, right across from the Boardwalk shops. And for the past few years, I have been focused on fitness and wellness for women, specifically pregnant and postpartum. But then recently, or I guess within the last year and a half, have expanded that to include perimenopause as well. So a lot of what I like to do is not just teach classes, but bring educational and empowering opportunities into the community so that we can understand what's happening in our bodies and feel a little bit more in control, especially during these phases of life where things may feel a little out of our hands. So with that, I will jump into the agenda for today specifically, really talking about our stories and why that matters, getting into some ground rules for this week. They're not hard and fast rules, but really just some guideposts for how to treat ourselves, especially this week. And then diving into what perimenopause is, talking about the remainder of this week and what we'll cover, and then get into some next steps. Now, everything is better with friends. So you have a QR code there, which links back to the sign up for this specific session so that if you want to invite someone tomorrow, or if you want to grab that QR code and text them right now, feel free. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and dive in to really our stories. So I found this quote, and there are a lot of quotes, some more on the funny side, but this really is how I wanted to ground our conversation this week, really treating perimenopause and menopause not as some like significant thing that changes us for the worse, but really a transition that allows us to bloom and to grow into whatever we want to be. And so that is my family and I. As you can see, I have two little ones. So I am in this weird straddling of postpartum and perimenopause. I'm in my 40s and just so often feel off. And so a lot of what I have today and for the rest of the week is like what I've found on my own personal journey, as well as just from some of the research and certifications that I've got around women's wellness. So with that, I, again, want you to think of this stage in your life as not the ending, but more of the beginning. And when you do that, that realization is really powerful. And so I want you to just think to yourself, what would not just surviving this time of your life look like? What would thriving look like? So if you can reconnect with who you are and who you want to be, not just for everyone else, but for yourself, what would that look like? Take just a moment to kind of contemplate that. Think about your story, kind of what's led you up to this point, where you are in your journey, and maybe what obstacles you've had to overcome, what challenges you're still facing. And then really beyond that, where do you want to go? Now, if you have a pen and paper available, I would also encourage you and welcome you to take a moment and just write down your why. Why do you want to feel good in this season? Why do you want to maybe show up differently for yourself, for your family? And then this why is really something that you can anchor yourself throughout this transition, not just this week, so that you can come back to it when things become maybe hard or unclear. Maybe you face some challenges and uncertainties. Just think about
This is
like,
for counseling.
sorry. Oh, sorry, Angel. I think you're on mute. But
Yes,
oh, sorry. I'm gonna see if I can mute you.
yes.
Okay, great. So, with all that being said, um, just having that again to anchor yourself so that you can come back to it and you can find that positivity, you can kind of recenter yourself. And again, think about what it would look like to bloom during this time. Okay, so let's dive in now and talk about some ground rules, which kind of goes along with that why. So, this really is a space for us to grow and to be curious about what this in our lives looks like, but not necessarily setting strict rules, but gentle guidelines. I want you to set an intention for this week specifically. It's not about pressure or perfection. It's just exploring really what supports you during this time of life. So, with that being said, we'll cover a lot this week, but I encourage you to explore. Sorry, my slides aren't going. Explore one new thing. So, this is a great time for experimentation. Maybe it's swapping your morning coffee with an herbal tea instead. Maybe you start to add more protein to your breakfast. Maybe you stop skipping breakfast altogether and, think about what nourishing your body at the beginning of your day looks like. Just think about maybe one thing that you can try starting today, or maybe as we get into some of the topics further in the week, one thing that you can implement and at least try for 5, 7 days. Now, trying to tackle everything that we cover this week will probably be way too much. Excuse me. So that's why I encourage you to pick one thing that you feel like you can be consistent with, at least over the 5 to 7 days of the next week. With that, and kind of going back to your why and to your story, speak kindly to yourself. So catch yourself from the self-criticism that maybe you kind of have found yourself in. Give yourself grace and compassion. You are doing the best that you can with what you know and what you have. And one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was if you wouldn't say it to your daughter, to your sister, to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. And then prioritize rest and sleep. So, not just the physical act of sleeping, but really allowing yourself to step away from some of life's stressors or anxieties that you feel and prioritize rest and breath work. And we'll talk about all of this kind of as we go through. But again, this is time for you to set aside time for yourself to really like recharge and rejuvenate. And then with regards to sleep, we'll cover it in a lot more detail, but quality sleep is really foundational to hormonal balance. So as we talk about what's naturally happening in your body, give it the best chance that it has through those nourishing foods and sleep so that ultimately we can find some balance where maybe elsewhere it's spiraling out of control. And then move daily. So one of the things that we'll really dive into in the movement is what movement can do for you in terms of blood sugar regulation and balance. So if you think about the workouts that you're doing today, maybe you're doing an hour. That would be amazing. But let's be honest, a lot of us don't have that hour to spend. But if you can just think about movement a little bit differently, so I don't necessarily need that full hour. Can I just move for 10 minutes while listening to something like this or a podcast or your favorite book? Or right after meals, can I head out and just walk around the block? And that will do so much alone for your blood sugar regulation, for your mood, for your energy. And so I encourage you to prioritize moving every day, even if it's just a 10-minute walk. And then lean into community. So, with that being said, community can be your friends, your family, your support group, but it can also be something just like this. So, we don't have to figure this out alone. And that's why I like to have these conversations because we can get together with people who just get it And so, whether it's over the next 5 days or it's in kind of the 201 in person or virtual events that are coming up, or even just in this Facebook community, I encourage you to plug in and stay connected and involved with each other again, because maybe your husband doesn't get it, maybe your sister doesn't get it. Like my mom never talked about menopause, so I probably won't talk to her about it. So, anyways, that's all to say that if you don't have that community around you, this is one that you can plug into. So I'll give it just a minute so you can take a screenshot. Also, be sending out this deck after the fact, so you can always go through, and if you want to connect to the Facebook group there, feel free. The other thing in that group, I will be sharing tips and tricks, recipes, local resources. So when I say local, usually that's around the Batavia, St. Charles, Geneva area, because that's kind of where I'm plugged into with regards to my referral sources. But if you have really great individuals that you've seen outside of there, please do add that to the group so that others can benefit just from the individuals that you're finding helpful and resourceful. A lot of times we'll think about going to our regular doctor and just being dismissed. And so it's always nice to understand who are those resources, who won't dismiss you, who know what's going on, and who can help you through. Okay. So let's now get into the bulk of our conversation. And perimenopause, like I had alluded to at the beginning, at least, it's not a single moment. It really is a process, a transition. It's the body's way of recalibrating. And sometimes I know the changes will feel intense. Maybe they'll feel scary. You'll feel out of control. And it seems to all happen when you're not expecting them or at all the wrong times. So that's why I'm trying to give you some tools and some tricks to be more in control so you can understand when those shifts are going to hit, or potentially how you're going to feel based on what you eat, how you sleep, what you do for movement, etc. Perimenopause means around menopause. It's typically something that starts in your 40s. It can start as early as mid 30s, and then it can go for 4 to 10 years. So that's why when we think about just like getting through it, I don't think that we should feel out of control or crummy for 4 to 10 years. If I can do something about wherever I am today, that's a huge win for the next X number of years. And then, of course, this is a natural hormonal shift, and perimenopause is up into the point where you are 12 months without a period, and then that is menopause, and anything after that is postmenopause. So if we think about what is happening in our bodies, we have changing hormones. So if we kind of look at how our hormones have progressed over X amount of years to get us to where we are now, you'll see that there are significant dips towards the end of both perimenopause and menopause. So we'll focus first on estrogen. And estrogen oftentimes is kind of referred to as the wild card. Estrogen, though, is an umbrella term for a group of hormones. So estradiol, as we see here on the slide, is really the main and most potent dominant form within estrogen. And so if you have maybe been put on birth control or some sort of like hormone replacement in this time of life, you're probably on estradiol. Now, estradiol is really the star player when it comes to regulating your menstrual cycle, supporting bone health, maintaining vaginal and skin tissue, and then protecting your heart and your brain function. And so it's important to really know how important that last piece is, because cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of women over 50. And so you may think like breast cancer or something else. It's actually like heart attacks, cardiovascular disease. And that's partially because of the loss of estrogen's protective effect. And it protects our heart by keeping blood vessels flexible. It supports healthy cholesterol levels. And then as it dips here in that pink line, really at the end of perimenopause into menopause, all that protection fades and it increases the risks of high blood pressure, plaque buildup, and like I said, those heart attacks. Now, progesterone is represented in the darker green here, and that is the hormone that's produced after ovulation. So after you ovulate, an egg is released into the fallopian tubes, and then what's left produces progesterone. And so progesterone is really there to stabilize uterine lining. If you've ever had trouble getting pregnant or maintaining a pregnancy, or you know someone who has, oftentimes doctors will put them on a progesterone supplement to help with this. It keeps estrogen in check and it prevents the lining from growing too thick. And so if we think about maybe where you are in perimenopause, ovulation may become irregular. It might stop altogether and then come back, and you might have spotting. Sometimes they're very heavy, and that's really because as we stop ovulating, we stop producing progesterone, and then estrogen goes unchecked. And this allows the uterine lining to build up excessively, so that those are your really heavy flows. You may be noticing even clots with each period, and all of that is kind of related. You might be on the other side where you have smaller periods, maybe shorter in cycles or spotting between periods just due to this hormonal instability. And so one thing that we'll talk about during this week is tracking your menstrual cycle so that you can advocate for yourself with your doctors and you can kind of understand maybe patterns in how you feel, how you sleep. So maybe we're not on that 28 to 34-day cycle anymore, but can we notice other instances in how we feel to understand maybe where we are in our cycle? The other thing that you may notice is that you just are really irritable. And that's kind of one thing where, like, me being postpartum and perimenopause, I'm like, I don't know what this is from, but it's something some days. And so progesterone is calming and balancing. And so when you have that decline and ultimately lost, estrogen's highs and lows can feel way more extreme than maybe they have in the past for you. Some common symptoms, as I mentioned, are that increased irritability. Maybe you feel more anxious. Maybe you understand or you're having trouble sleeping. And then you have that period irregularity. And so all of that is really tied back to progesterone. Now, the last piece is testosterone. And we don't really think about testosterone that much because it is really more male centric, or historically we think about it in relation to men, but it does affect our motivation, our libido, and our physical strength. So that's why it's important not to overlook it in women, because it's vital for confidence, for drive, for muscle tone. And we'll really talk about the importance of muscles when we get into nutrition and movement, because as we age, we lose muscle naturally. But then as we think about maybe trying to combat some of this weight gain or weight redistribution that we have during this time, we not automatically, but oftentimes we'll go to like a calorie deficit diet. And that then is just using your muscles when you don't have enough food or energy being fed to your body. And so with that being said, we want to increase our muscle mass as much as we can, or at least maintain it however we can, making sure that we are feeding our bodies appropriately and moving in a way that's building our muscles rather than just trying to burn off all those calories. And then again, because we don't talk about testosterone a lot, we don't necessarily think about the role that it plays here in perimenopause. But when you're thinking about low energy, low to no sexual desire and mood stability, that's really where testosterone is key. Now, one thing that we will talk about a little bit at the end of this week is hormone replacement therapy. And so many women that I work with will seek this out during this time. It's not for everyone. And so, like blanket statement, I would never do a blanket statement that says everyone should be on a hormone replacement therapy. We'll talk a lot about this concept of bio-individuality and what that means. If something works really well for your best friend, for your friend's friend, for your own sister, that does not mean that it will work best for you. And so that's really where we want to plug into some of these resources that I'll give you so that you can have that personalized medical attention rather than just kind of that blanket, everyone should be on estradiol or, some sort of replacement therapy. Now, some OB/GYNs don't really have any experience in perimenopause, menopause. You may have found this out already when asking your doctor why you feel off or what the symptoms are that you're feeling. They're just not really trained in medical school around major life transitions, such as perimenopause and menopause. So that's why I really want to give you those resources that have those specializations and are trained in menopause, focused on menopause. And I just have a few local nurse practitioners that I love because that's really like they're all they care about and all they focus on. Now, I also want to talk about hormone replacement therapy just briefly here so that you understand what it is when you hear hormone replacement therapy versus bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Traditional hormone replacement therapy uses hormones from synthetic or animal-derived sources, usually equine. Whereas bioidentical hormone replacement therapy will use hormones that are chemically identical to human hormones, and often they are plant-derived, either from yams or soy. So it may be interesting to learn that because a lot of times you will see that you need to eat more soy in this time of life because of the hormone balancing effects that it brings. And so maybe not surprising that it is used for that bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. As with anything, of course, there are pros and cons to each, and that's where plugging into a resource dedicated to it, or at least trained in it, will be key. Now, let's talk about what you are feeling. Because when we think about the hormones and what they're doing and how they're fluctuating, they are giving us signs and symptoms. And so just a quick poll here. I don't know if kind of as you're going through here, you're like, yes, me, yes, me, yes, me. But when you've brought them up to your care provider, you felt dismissed. You can just like throw an emoji or a thumbs up or write in the chat because chances are there will be a few of us who can say, yes, they just said it's part of getting older, or maybe they've even labeled it perimenopause, but oftentimes it's not like a big deal. Awesome. Yeah, so Jamie has found a new individual to chat with, so we'll love to have you tell us who that is, either in the chat or we'll throw it in that Facebook group. But what I wanted to kind of highlight today, because I feel like this is a really comprehensive study that's been done, is this amorphous study. So in this way, we're acknowledging that your symptoms are real. And if anyone's dismissing how you feel, please show them this study, because research through this Morphus group has actually shown that there are over 103 signs and symptoms of menopause. And so rather than just maybe tolerating all these distressing symptoms, we can do something about it. So as you see here, Morvis is a science-backed platform dedicated to educating and supporting women through both perimenopause and menopause. It was founded by a nutritionist and menopause educator and a leader really in women's hormonal health. It's collected from data given by over 50,000 plus women. And so it's really one of the largest real world symptom databases. It combines both evidence-based research with lived experiences to normalize and demystify the menopause transition. And then you'll see on the next slide, I have another QR code for you. So you can go and check out that study for yourself so that you can understand some of that expert-led content, but it also has symptom tracking tools and community resources for you. So as you're looking to navigate what's happening in your body, you can find more resources there. So here we have the top 10. Some may not be surprising to you. The one thing that I found surprising with this is that hot flashes is number 9 out of 10, where that's something that you usually see a little bit more happening. And with that, fatigue is actually number 1. And so probably some of you, if not everyone, is like, yes, that is me all day, every day, no matter how much I sleep. I just feel like I have no energy. And so here are 10. We'll go on to the next 16 because there may be even more that you have found that you have more of. Lack of patience being one, headaches, migraines, all of these things that maybe you're dismissing as being stressed or not sleeping as well, they may all be playing into where you are with perimenopause. As I mentioned, here is a link to the study specifically around these not only 26, but 103 signs and symptoms of perimenopause. So if you want to go and check out that full list or print it out and give it to those individuals who are doubting where you are or what you're feeling, your symptoms are very real. Now, I will open it up here if anyone wants to share what stands out to them from these 26, maybe something that you've been feeling lately, but that you never attributed to maybe perimenopause. All right. Well, hopefully there's a few that you just did not think of or did not know were related, and you feel a little bit better about maybe where you're at in your transition so that you can, again, feel seen and heard and know that you are not alone. All right. Now, for the basics of today, I really just wanted to talk about hormones changing, your menstrual cycle, as well as the top signs and symptoms, so that you feel like you have those basics as we go into our next few days, where we really get into a lot of information. And so if we look at what's coming over the next week, we will be covering a lot. So in nutrition and supplementation, we'll really learn about how to optimize your diet with nutrient-dense foods, how those foods support hormonal balance. I do not like to talk about necessarily cutting things from your diet, but either like overcrowding. So you're eating more of the good things and you like feel about the bad things, or finding what works for you. And so a lot of times in resources, it'll say like, don't eat any sugar, don't drink any alcohol, never drink coffee again. And I just know that those alone are like 3 of the biggest pieces to our daily diets potentially. And so stripping them from our diets are not going to necessarily set us up for success. So we really want to talk about all the nutrient dense foods that we can eat. We'll also talk about how we can add spices to certain things that we maybe already are eating or have completely new recipes that we try out because things like turmeric and cinnamon and nutmeg, all of these have their place in balancing blood sugar and reducing inflammation, so that you can feel really empowered with maybe a new set of meals that you can cook, or just how to eat for, that sustained success with nutrition. Then we will talk about movement and how to stay active for a stronger body and a stronger mind. As I've already talked about, like muscle mass is already declining. Certain aspects of just our body function will pull nutrients from our bones at times, making them very brittle as we move through perimenopause into menopause and beyond. So it's important that we are doing movements that are not only strengthening our muscles, but are strengthening our bones. We'll talk about cardio's role in all of this, especially as we're thinking about helping either remove unwanted weight, or help with that like weight distribution that maybe we're noticing. Talking about where maybe slowing down a little bit and tuning into things like yoga and Pilates may have a better outcome than just, killing ourselves on the treadmill. And then kind of playing along with that in terms of mind body practices and how all of this can help manage stress, improve sleep, and boost our mood. We already gave one tip today so far. Just getting out, doing a quick walk after a meal will help balance your blood sugar in a way that like a hard hour at the gym won't. So at least start to think about movement that you enjoy and that you can fit into probably an already packed schedule. And then we'll talk about the foundation of health around sleep, some sleep strategies. You can just, silently raise your hand if you are having trouble sleeping, whether that's falling asleep or staying asleep. We'll try to give you some tips and tricks of what you can do to have a more restful night's sleep. And then really get into how to minimize your stress, or how you deal with stress, how it impacts you, so that we can see how sleep and stress, movement and nutrition, all of this plays into maybe symptom relief and ultimately feeling better, mind, body, and soul. And then we have other important topics that maybe don't fit nicely into the three above. And so mental health is incredibly important, especially as you think about minimizing stress. But if you think about where you are in this journey, sometimes you are sandwiched between your aging parents and your adolescent children. Maybe they're a little bit younger, but I know we kind of talked when we were getting on, like in their teens, and all of that can be very, very trying and a very heavy mental load. So how do you help to cope with that? Kind of being in the middle, especially when every, I don't know how to say this like in a politically correct way, but one of my like favorite students that comes to class often, she's like, IDGAF anymore. And so you may be there too. So when all of your F's are gone and you need something to plug into, we'll give you some tips and tricks for that. And then pelvic floor health. So for those of you who have children, you have maybe had a load on your pelvic floor, whether that's just from carrying your little one or actually giving birth vaginally. And then potentially you have separation of your abdominals that have never fully closed. So I do see a lot of women, again, as they're aging and getting into perimenopause, where some of the recovery never happened. And so there's a lot of back pain, as well as incontinence and other issues related to maybe a weak pelvic floor. So we like to talk about prolapse and prolapse and incontinence, and how to help maintain the health of your pelvic floor so that you can continue living, jumping and laughing and sneezing and doing all the things that you should be doing without fear of what will happen there. again, as estrogen declines, that impacts your tissue health. And so that's, again, maybe why you are feeling more issues down there. Okay, so like I said, we have a lot packed into the remaining 4 days, and we're not done yet. But if we end a little early today, chances are we will be going the full hour for the next 4 days. Now, if you have any questions, I have a little piece at the end of the presentation where we can bring those up, but throw them in the Facebook group, reach out to me and ask me, and we can always cover those as part of Friday's FAQ if we don't get to them maybe in one of the other 4 days. So let's talk about next steps. So we have the next 4 days together, and I hope you'll join me. Again, if you can't join me in person, you will have the recording and the deck sent out to you and posted in that Facebook group. But really what I wanted this foundational 101 week to be about was to understand maybe where you are and what you can do about it, understanding that there are more advanced topics to get into. And so I have done a educational and empowerment series a few times now at my studio in Batavia, but I am bringing it back with a little different taste. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about this week, we kind of covered in those empowerment series, with the feedback that we need to go a little bit deeper. And so I have asked some local experts and resources to come and talk to us about what's happening in our body beyond just what I'll talk about this week. Now, even though we'll be talking about nutrition and movement over the next 2 days, we'll really get into beating the bloat specifically, about what you can do specific to weight management on May 5th. Now, all of these are going to be on Monday evenings from 6 to 8. We have a mix of that expert talking to us for about an hour or more, and then we get into some self-care. We've done things like acupuncture, which is a little harder to do virtually, but we talk about or actually get into like a class to do weighted exercises or calming exercises. One time we did a rolling exercise with yoga tune-up balls, just to kind of give yourself like that mini massage at any given point of your day to help with the calming effects. But that's why it's 2 hours long. So May 5th, Beyond the Bloat. And then May 12th, we're asking Yuande Benir to come back. She's a local family nurse practitioner, and she has Serena infusions. So she does bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and she's talked about that a few times to date. But when I was talking to her about this series, I was like, we never really get into the thyroid, and some of you maybe even have something like Hashimoto's or other thyroid dysfunction. So we will get into what perimenopause means to your thyroid and the hormones that it produces, so that you can find balance, energy, wellness, and understand maybe when additional medications are necessary, or more natural ways in which you can balance T3, T4, etc. Then we are bringing in Jackie Groff from Be Present Therapy and Wellness, and she will be talking about that sandwich generation and just being stretched thin. So if you are in my students' same mindset of IDGAF, you can come and you can understand a little bit more about what's happening during this time, but also what we can do about it, so that we show up again more for ourselves and for everyone that we're caring for, without that lack of empathy that maybe you've been feeling. And then the last week, so we're going to skip Memorial Day. That's kind of why we go from May 19th to June 2nd. But June 2nd, we are bringing in Lena Bird. She is a pelvic floor therapist out of Lisle. And we are going to be talking about what is happening with your pelvic floor. what's happening with your periods, and how that all translates into prolapse, incontinence, and sex. Even though you may have some libido, maybe sex just isn't pleasurable. So that's like another whole thing that we get into. Again, this is all about bringing maybe taboo conversations to light so that we don't feel so alone and so isolated during this time. The great thing about these series is you are welcome to come to one or more of them. I try to do it so it's not like stacked on top of each other necessarily, so you don't have to be at one to get the next one. So if any of these resonate with you, I'd love for you to join us. It's always been in person, but this time we are actually going to have virtual options available. So we hope that that helps give you the chance to come and join us. All right, so as we end today, just a little reminder. This week, the rules are we're going to try one new thing. We're going to speak kindly to ourselves. We're going to prioritize rest and sleep. We're going to move daily, even if just for 10 minutes after this conversation. And we're going to lean into community. So that may mean inviting your friends for the remaining 4 days so that you have something to talk about the next time you're out. Maybe some accountability partners. But then if you just don't feel like you have that network around you, join that Facebook group. That's the second one, so that you can at least stay connected to me and hopefully the others in this group and the upcoming series, empowerment series, so that we can share things that we are struggling with. We can ask questions. Jamie's going to share that doctor that she has plugged into that she really likes. I'll be sharing recipes and just a great way to kind of continue the conversation even beyond this hour. So I know we weren't super content heavy today, and that's just because we're going to be pretty content heavy the rest of the day, and we kind of had to lay those ground rules. So if there are any questions, we can get into them now. Otherwise, we will give you about 15 or so minutes back to maybe go grab that walk or just have some time before you get back to work. But I will be here at least for the next 15 minutes if you have any questions. If not, and you want to hop, I will leave you with my contact information. Again, my name's Kelly Vita. I own Empower Her Fitness in Batavia. All of our classes are held in Zen Loft Collective, and that is the website as well as my Instagram and Facebook handles. All right, if you have to jump, thank you again for joining us. Otherwise, if you want to stick around and ask questions, I'll be here.